I'm going to share this tonight.
How y'all doing?
Good, right, how are you?
Feeling good.
Oh, you already have that.
I didn't feel like ukuleles could get like this many people in the room.
Ukulele is the hottest and newest thing.
Yeah, for 8-year-old girls, for me usually. But
Anybody that has beer? Cheers. Welcome.
Cheers.
Cheers, Canadians.
Cheers.
Long may it rain. Thank you very much for coming down.
Thanks so much for having me.
Yeah.
Not bad, is it?
Oh, that's tasty.
Like lunch and bone.
What is it called?
Chimay.
Oh, I like that.
What color? Blue.
Is this one of the things that I can't get like a
Well,
strawberry?
people know about me, I know what it is.
Have you, Josh, used it? Josh,
Oh, yeah.
Nick, they have Sinead in London.
No, they don't.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. They have it in a lot of places.
The blue one, is that the one you
That's
brought?
the blue one.
Yeah,
We've
they
been
have
drinking
it
this the whole
one
time.
Yeah, you know, I've been playing there since 1998, and I just got the Guinness.
I know. Well, get a Sinead next Tuesday.
I've been playing there since '98. I started on Mondays, and then I got the big promotion to Tuesday, somewhere around 2003.
There you go. Mondays are terrible there. You don't want Mondays.
It's been pretty fun. Well, yeah.
All right.
Welcome, guys. Thanks very much. This is a great turnout. Thank you very much for such a fun Friday night. And yeah.
Great. Just roll whenever.
Yeah.
Cool. All right. Quick show of hands. How many people here have a guitar?
I have a guitar.
All right,
I have
cool.
so many. But not
So many? Okay. Anybody who just had their hands up, you guys already own ukuleles. So,
I'm calling horseshit right now. Someone's tried to explain it to me this way.
hold your horseshit for just 2 seconds. But I only made 3 of these because I figure we're just going to pass them around anyway.
Ukulele is like my kryptonite. I want to understand it.
Yeah. So, and I'll hold on to this just so I know what I'm describing. But
Oh my
pretty
God.
much anything 5th fret and up, and on your first 4 strings is the ukulele verbatim. So we have
This actually makes sense.
Okay.
So the part that you kept highlighting,
that is all ukulele territory.
no kidding.
Yeah. So we have G, C, E, A. It's our ukulele standard tuning. On 5th
Do you
fret.
have an anagram for that, or any like way to?
God, gorillas can eat anything was what we usually taught kids. But you can make up something dirtier if you want.
Stick with the gorillas for now.
Okay.
I thought it would be gorillas can eat anything. Including you.
And we still have. So I'm a guitar player. I'm not really a ukulele player so much. I took up the instrument for a job that I got for no good reason in Texas. In the interview, they asked me if I could play ukulele, and I just said, "Yeah, I can learn." And he was like, "Yeah, good enough for me." So we started with this, and I was trying to figure out the instrument just starting from scratch, but eventually I started making all the connections I could back to guitar, which I was much more familiar with. So I tend to like to use a low G string. So all 4 strings will sound like G, C,
Is that
E,
not
A.
common?
It's not typical. Usually, that's called linear tuning. It usually would sound more like G, C, E, A.
Okay.
But since I was in a job where we were teaching after-school classes to kids, try to get a kid to get their head around, well, first your second highest string, and then your lowest, and then the next lowest, and then the highest. So just having everything in one straight line, much easier. Also much more like a guitar, so easier for me. But
Who's the fellow who does the really great version of One of My Guitar Company Weaves?
Jake Shimabukuro.
Yeah, does he do the linear tuning?
I don't think he does, but there's another ukulele virtuoso named James Hill, and we actually got all of our repertoire and teaching books and things like that from him.
Okay.
but he likes to go with the linear tuning, mostly because he likes to do one-man band kind of things. He'll be doing like percussion, chords, melody, and everything just by himself. And he says, well, I get an extra 5 notes out of having my low G. And one, he's a great player, but he's also an excellent teacher. And from his perspective, the linear tuning just makes 1,000,000% more sense. But yeah, so my experience with it was learning kind of my cowboy chords, like everybody does with guitar. So we have C, G, D, A, and like everything like that. And eventually, I was trying to think of it like starting on my low string and building up from that, like you do with bar chords or scales or anything for playing guitar. And similar enough, but then I realized, oh, it's the top 4 strings of the guitar. So I realized I could just use the top of scales, the top of chords, anything to kind of get myself around. And since I started visualizing the guitar's neck, everything while I was learning this instrument, I was realizing that this is a great way to teach somebody learning guitar how to get familiar with their higher register. And a lot of people, everybody starts out with cowboy chords, right?
Yeah.
And it's a quick way to get to have fun. But the rest of the neck can seem pretty intimidating. The ukulele is a pretty inviting little instrument. Like, this thing is not scary. But if you can visualize it, that if I was barring the 5th fret on a guitar and then 6, 7, 8th fret on my E string, that this is another way that you can play a C chord. And the same thing for another G chord. And so after I was really getting familiar with the ukulele, my comping was getting a lot better on guitar, because I was finding all of these little options that I had to play things. And I was thinking about this, like, just how much do you get with the ukulele? How much of a guitar? And the back of the envelope calculation I did with my phone was just over 50%. What you're missing is a hair over an octave. But everything down to your 5th fret on your D string, that note is something that you're going to be able to find on the ukulele. Anything below, you're going to need a guitar for it. But you find out how, well, one, it is an actual constraint when you're playing. But I translated a lot of what I knew on guitar over to ukulele. And found that a lot of the time it didn't make sense in the key it was, and I had to transpose and translate. Or I found a chord and I couldn't find anything convenient, so I had to start using like these weird open chords higher up on the neck. That's not my favorite. But
Is that are you playing a nylon string uke there, or is that a...
This one is a nylon string, yeah.
Yeah, and your other one is the steel.
The other one is a steel. That one is very weird for ukuleles.
Is it the same tuning, though?
It is the same tuning.
Is it linear tuning?
It is linear tuning.
Did they come like that?
This one didn't, and this one is so tied to how they make electric guitars that automatically came with it. And actually, I guess if they wanted to put a high G on it, they would just take the high E string of a guitar and tune it to something else.
I have a 2-part question, and it involves time. So, did you, when you met Lee, had you seen him playing ukulele before?
No.
Okay, so you thought he was like, you thought he was good stuff, and then he played ukulele afterwards? I'm just trying to discern, like, did it make him more attractive or more appealing?
Oh, yeah, it's really cool.
Well, because you notice how small the ukulele is, and it makes his arm look huge. I mean, his arm is already very big, but the instrument is quite small, but it makes his bicycle huge. Is this by
Yeah.
design, or is that an accident?
No, exactly exactly what
It's
the
like
point
a
of this
fishing
is.
lure.
Oh yeah, actually, I've
Yeah. So guys,
side
I'm
note,
gonna
actually,
check if you
way
have
more
any
success
muscles.
with women playing ukulele, and not just because of how you look. Because I think because everybody plays guitar, and you can casually pick up a ukulele, but you kind of have to like work to get the guitar out and make room for yourself in a sort of situation. But you can pick this up and make room for it with nobody noticing.
Does
but-
anybody have one of those sheets? Is the sheet still
Right
there?
here.
I want to take one more peek at it.
I just can't tell I look at everything upside down.
Okay.
Okay.
We might be able to get here with this thing. And I would need to like fold it up. Okay. I'm sorry. Please continue.
Well, I thought I was going somewhere.
Yeah.
Right, but a lot of what I was playing on guitar, I just decided to take to ukulele because that seemed like the natural way to explore everything. And then it really taught me to start thinking of chords in theory. Like, what are my chords made out of? Nick's a pretty good teacher, so most of you are probably familiar that chords are 3 or more notes played at the same time, and there's a formula for how you put these together. The first, the third, and the fifth note of a major scale or a minor scale. That's how you're going to get a major chord or a minor chord. And I started just kind of running out of space. You only have 4 strings to address these notes on, and then if you get to a 7th chord, you're using all of the strings. And if you get to a 9th chord with, say, a major 7 in it, then you're like, well, what's not important anymore?
Start sacrificing.
You start sacrificing things. I'm like, what am I trying to say? But it was really good for me because with guitar, you just you have the whole buffet in front of you. You can say what you need to say anywhere. But this way, I actually really had to go through a thought process. So there were like just open chord shapes, and I was trying to see where I could take them. And I realized that some of these shapes are the same on guitar, and so then I started playing them on guitar, and everything was just down a fourth. And so, more visual aids, because I figured this would get abstract. But I have the same shapes once on ukulele, and then on guitar. Seeing how these translated.
You were talking a little bit before about how you felt like your comping got a little bit more fluid.
Yeah.
On guitar from the ukulele.
Yeah, because you're using fingerings that you're not going to probably put a lot of emphasis on.
Do you feel like, was it kind of along the lines of like modal voicing, like back when we were talking about modal voicing, or did you feel like it was a little chunkier, like Grateful Dead voices?
Well, I feel like Grateful Dead comping, like Bob Weir can, he has like a spread of like 10 frets with his left hand, something like that. So he can really get it lush if he wants to. And sometimes when you come up with a voicing for a chord on ukulele, it's barely acceptable to the ear. It technically has everything in it, but there might be just too much space between the notes. And I put a note on the guitar page. It's technically a major chord, that B flat there. And when it gets around, everybody's gonna know what I'm talking about. But what's happening there is we're making our D major shape from the guitar. This is how you play a G on the ukulele. And I got up to what was the E flat up here. And I was like, that's the 3 notes I need. That's an E flat major chord, but what's going on? But what's happening is that, let's see. Yeah, this. That's an A flat, I guess. Yeah, A flat is actually the minor third of the chord we're making. The note makes more sense to me on guitar because I have more things to reference. Well, on the guitar, it was saying that the 5th of B flat, the 5th note in either a major or minor scale, starting from B flat, would be F. And the open string that we'd be using in that chord shape would be D. So that actually creates a minor harmony. But at the same time, we're trying to spell a major chord with that shape. And it ends up sounding just kind of just like off. There's something kind of mixed about it. It's kind of cool, but you find yourself doing some clumsy things just to fit everything in there. With this? Well, I was teaching classes with this and teaching kids, so yeah, I was doing some singing. Which I don't love to do, but like I had trouble with public speaking, but singing is like another level of terror on top of that. But it got better, especially because I started to care less and less how good the singing was. I was just like, I'm just doing my job and I'm getting through this. Sort of thing, but we had our own repertoire of songs that my boss actually would write for these classes, and that was probably the hardest thing to get into because I'd been doing private teaching beforehand, and then they were putting me up in front of 20 kids at a time and telling me to actually like not just teach, but you have to put on a show to keep them there. So very steep learning curve for me, especially being just like a naturally shy person. But yeah, some singing.
How did you do with the kids?
I kind of ended up liking kids. I never really had like...
Really?
Yeah.
I
never really had, like-
It goes one or the other way. Like,
Yeah.
You're not lukewarm.
Well, I was pretty lukewarm coming in. I just like never thought much about, you know, are kids cool? Are they not? Because I was just like never having to hang out with kids a lot of the time. But they're just the most honest beings that you can get yourself around. If kids don't like you, they will let you know it. If they like you, they'll say it, and it's like a big compliment. And some of them are just weird in like a very good way. Like when I was moving back to Ohio, I feel like they get used to you because at first like this was a class that I had trouble getting along with.
Getting along with, like, for fisticuffs with the kids? Like, what?
Well, like just
I think you're allowed to fight kids now.
oh yeah. I asked my boss what the difference between teaching the older kids and the younger kids was, and he said, well, you have to beat the younger kids harder. But no, like it's harder to control their behavior and like keep them from acting out in class and stuff like that. And this was a class that I had more trouble with. Last day that I was teaching them though, this one kid, Andrew's very distractible, probably ADD type of kid, said, you know, Mr. Nate, when I started this class, I really didn't like ukulele. And he was like looking down at his ukulele the whole time, and then he just kind of kept like playing the ukulele, and I was like, And then what? He was like, oh. I was like, cool. Gonna miss you too, Andrew.
What age group is this?
He was probably, this was actually like the widest range for a class that I had, and he was probably, I want to say 3rd grade. And I had like 2nd grade to 4th grade with that class.
Okay.
Yeah. So, and you're also teaching to a differential. So some kids were coming in, and Austin, where I was living, is a very music-heavy town. And so they either hang out with musicians through their family, or their family has a lot of music enthusiasts, and people are playing around them. So a lot of the time they come in, they already know guitar, or they've already been playing ukulele. And then there are some kids that are coming in, and they're just trying this out. So you end up giving people like little assignments. Well, everybody's just like learning to play their 1-finger chord. And I might tell the advanced kid, all right, well, how about this? You're going to play a bass line with just C, G, and you're going to play C. And that would keep him busy the entire class trying to nail it. And it's adding something. Something that wasn't there before for the song that was going on. So, I mean, that was the nice thing about teaching, was finding out that it's a very low barrier to entry, skill-wise, to start playing the ukulele. Because if kids couldn't, you know, get their fingers to actually fret the note properly, I could still tell them to play a bass line, or just play chord tones with open strings, something like that. But some kids really had to be given a challenge. Actually, a few of my students up in Columbus, they've gotten through all the method books for learning to play ukulele. They had a couple of teachers before me. And there's not a ton of resources out there for, you know, following a methodology through a book to learn to play ukulele. So we started going back through the book and said, well, how about we play chord melodies? So we're going to play the melody at the same time that we're playing the chords. And we can't, now that we're doing both of these, we can't just play all the strings or all the notes. We'll play the chord up to the string where the melody note is. And that was just, it just opens up a whole universe. So you start, you know, with hardly anything, but the skill ceiling for it is pretty much infinite. If you look at like Jake Shimabukuro or James Hill, these guys are just doing like impossible things with the ukulele.
You teach way more children than I do.
Yeah.
Do you think it's harder teaching kids than adults?
Yeah,
Or
definitely.
vice versa?
Definitely, actually. Definitely harder. Because adults kind of come there under their own volition, and they're better at articulating a question if they don't understand something. And kids might come in there kind of lukewarm, and you have to get them excited to do something that their mom is making them do. So like really celebrate every little accomplishment. Try to, you know, carrot and stick, like show them something cool that they're maybe 2 steps away from being able to do. That sort of thing. But they're also way less self-conscious about telling you what they're interested in. One thing that happens a lot, and I don't know how often it happens for you, but I just asked somebody in the first lesson, it's like, well, what are you interested in learning to do with the guitar? And, yeah, I just want to learn it. Well, what kind of music are you interested in? She's like, nothing in particular.
Which
And
is crazy. Because
yeah.
I think everybody here's a guitar player. Everybody here's a guitar player. Doesn't matter. That's like saying be like food.
Yeah,
Yeah, there's food that you're not going to like the taste of.
yeah, and I
Not a thing.
don't think it's an honest answer. I think that they do have interests, but they're a little bit self-conscious to say that this is the music that I'm excited about. And kids are just like, Maroon 5! And I'm like, totally happy to tell you.
happening?
Yeah, like guess we're learning Maroon 5 now. Like there's one girl who just really loves the soundtrack from Hamilton, and so every lesson we just come in and like start to put together one of those songs.
Are there any cool youth arrangements for it, or do you have to arrange it on the spot?
No, I have to put it together by ear.
Is it pretty tough? Or?
Some of it is tough, but it depends what we're doing because a lot of that stuff is pretty much just like a looped arrangement for a hip hop song. And sometimes it's like straight up Broadway, and so there's a lot of different changes based on like the content of the lyrics. And for that one, I kind of just opt out and like we're just learning the melody for this one. It's like who singing do you like the most? And then we just learn to write out and play along with one person's voice. But there's usually something that you can do with it. And kids have it's probably easier to teach them ukulele. Some of my like getting off the ground students with guitar, I am actually bringing in a ukulele sometimes to say, like, hey, you know that D major shape that you're making on guitar? And I bring out the ukulele. It's like, what if I make that same shape here? Oh. And I talk to them about that same handout that I gave to you. It's like, well, this is everything that's happening, you know, at your 5th fret and for your first 4 strings. So like, do we think that we could make some chords out of those same shapes up the neck? And they're like, yeah, maybe. And, you know, they'll find out, oh, okay. This is the same thing. They're probably not like doing a 4-finger chord here to carry that bar up, but they might just be doing the 3-note triad. They're like, oh wait, this is a major chord everywhere. And it just really brings the point home to have 2 different contexts that are, you know, it's another instrument. It's not just visual or auditory. It's you pick it up, you feel it, and like it's the whole experience is similar enough that they can really make that connection.
Do you feel like your connection with the youth is, it sounded like it came from a very practical place, like, oh man, I need this job,
Mm-hmm.
you better learn how to play the youth. Now that you've spent so much time with it, are you able to, like, sink your spiritual teeth into it the way that you are with the guitar? Like, is there an arrangement of a tune that you only like to play on the ukulele, or is it still only a practical?
Yeah. Well, yeah, the ukulele kind of won me over, just because I was teaching myself, and one I was teaching other people, and so I had to articulate it, and it became its own little wormhole that I kind of fell into. But you know, I play Stash on guitar sometimes, but I really just. It's like it comes out of the ukulele much more naturally for me, and I think just because I can fit that whole melody right in the biggest spaced frets of it, basically like the down low on guitar, where you would be putting your open chords and like everything's right within reach, so it all feels like pretty natural. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Probably, yeah, and because I was in Texas, like I thought it would be fun to learn like ZZ Top, and that just comes out much more easily on the ukulele than it does on the guitar.
I never thought I would hear the range on the ukulele.
Yeah. And I don't know, like maybe you'll beat me to it because I haven't gotten to it, but I've looked up the ukulele lessons and they're always like, and the first chord that they're playing is A. It's not that A, dude. It's not everything's a major chord on the ukulele. Like it's a power chord. So, yeah, if you can get in there and actually like play real music on the ukulele, there's a lot of gaps to be filled out there for people trying to learn real music.
Yeah, and I suppose if you're learning on the nylon strings, that barring across those 4 strings is not an impossible feat at first.
No,
It's not a bad way to introduce bar chords, I suppose. And I'm always trying to talk people into bar chords are barbaric. Always like trying to get them on,
Yeah. And I'm like, well, man, bar chords free you up so much to like give you options of where to play these chords. And it's like, dude, you can play a C sharp now. Like, you can't do that with open chords, at least not too easily. But yeah, the nylon strings definitely help. And a lot of the time, they don't even have to like do the bar. They can do like every finger in there. If they're really afraid of bars. But yeah, I think that there might be a little bit more string tension on a ukulele's nylon strings than on a like 3/4 sized nylon string guitar.
Okay.
For a kid, yeah. Which I guess is actually even more of an argument to give ukuleles to kids, because a kid-sized guitar is just I don't know how many people have like picked up a kid's guitar in a shop and try to play it, but they have it in standard tuning, and like every string is just flopping, and it doesn't feel right under the hand. But when you get a ukulele, it feels like it's pretty comparable to the adult-sized experience of how much force you really have to put down to get a note going.
So would you say like more ukuleles for kids? Start a nonprofit or foundation?
That literally exactly what the job was. Yeah.
See, I had an idea kind of about that, but it wasn't ukes. It was just sugar. Not necessarily candy, but just thinking like, just give me more sugar to see if you really like it.
Yeah.
You know.
And it'll be hard to manage them for the first 10 minutes, but then they all crash and like nap for the next hour.
Why is my child having a seizure?
But no, but it really is an ideal learning instrument for kids. And the problem with it is not like getting them to be interested in it, but to get them to shut up with the ukulele in their hands. Like a lot of them, like we're giving them drum parts and they're constantly banging on it. They're constantly just going on all the strings, which is cool. I think that's the coolest thing that kids do with instruments, is that they're trying to explore and see what new sounds they're kind of making. They're literally playing with the instrument, which huge benefit in anybody's practice, whatever instrument they're playing, is to be like, what, I mean, would it be cool if I did this and then like just try making drum beats out of like sounds that you can make on your instrument for the next hour? I hardly know any adults who can get lost down a path like that when they pick up their instrument to practice, but kids do it kind of automatically.
Adults have YouTube.
Adults have YouTube.
The YouTube death spiral.
Yeah.
My buddy Gabe says that he starts like looking at cute kittens, and it all like ultimately gets down to like police brutality or something like that.
Yeah.
No matter what, it's only a couple clicks away.
You start with like how it's made, telescopes, and then it's all just
Police
like
brutality.
yeah, police brutality every single time.
Thanks, YouTube.
Yeah.
What genre? Sorry, Brian, go ahead.
A quick question. Actually, it was my daughter's question. But,
Yeah.
she just wanted to know what kind of ukulele that is. Soprano, concert ukulele? Or something else?
This is actually a tenor. So they go from, well, piccolo, which is even smaller than soprano, less frets. So I mean, like if you're 4 years old, you'll be playing piccolo, ideally. Then you get up to soprano, which has that really boxy kind of, luau sort of sound to it. Concert, if your hands are a little bit bigger, it's easier to fit your hands around that. And then this just felt better. This is a tenor. So this is the longest scale length that you can get before you go into a baritone ukulele and just an entirely different tuning. But yeah, I immediately felt at home when I switched over to tenor, because the free ukulele they gave me at work was a soprano. And I was like, what do I do with you?
So she's learning ukulele, just starting in 5th grade.
Nice.
So what advice would you give her? So, it's just school, and we're thinking of buying one for her, so if you have recommendations on brands and stuff. But what would you tell her starting out on ukulele?
Starting out on ukulele, well, are they going to be working from a method book? Or probably?
Public school, I'm not quite sure.
Yeah, okay.
You don't think so?
Yeah, well,
Well, maybe not.
yeah. Well, be brave with just saying that you like some things and you don't like other things. because whoever's teaching you wants to help you. And if you say, I like this artist and her songs, I can't remember the name of that one girl from America's Got Talent, but she plays ukulele and she sings, Grace Vanderwall. And
Do
like,
we have a masterclass on how to pour a damn beer? I wish you guys could have seen that.
I'm having a fraternity meetup tomorrow morning, so they
Oh,
probably
I'm so bad I have to pour it over the sink. 'Cause I can,
It looks frightening.
well, it looks great, but 10 napkins down. I'm sorry.
No, you're good. But yeah, but so many girls come in and I have to like really pull it out of them. They're like, well, I like some songs by Grace Vanderwall, and I'm like, awesome, let's dig into it. If you like something and you think you might like to learn it, just like speak up and tell them, because they want to help you. This would go for any instrument, really. Whatever you're excited about is going to be the best way to go with it. But also, on just drier stuff, I've been playing Kalas mostly since I picked it up, and that was because my old boss was a hustler. Like, he had the nonprofit where we were teaching classes all over town, but he also had a separate company where he sold all Kala products to everybody who he was teaching in the other thing. But he started up another company called Good Tone, and typical MSRP, but helping out a buddy. But yeah, Kalas have I would say they're probably like the Toyotas through Lexus of ukuleles. You get a lot of value, and they can get up to be some pretty premium instruments.
Where we have a school? College?
Yeah, I think Makala is sort of their entry-level brand. Like, if you know that Gibson has Epiphone to make the cheap version of everything, then you'll find the cheap version of Kala ukuleles in the Makala line. Yeah.
Annika, you get to play ukulele in school? No kidding. That's like we had recorder.
Yeah, that's what we're trying to do, is kill the recorder.
Well,
Yeah.
gosh, yeah. I mean, I think about all of the opportunities we had as kids to have good experience with music, and you didn't have one until you were like 13 or 14. And then when you were 13 or 14, you always, you hear a lot of stories about, the craziest thing is in here when I have a lot of my adult students are talking about singing and some of their favorite singer-songwriters, and there's a lot of experiences of them talking about how their choir director was less than kind about their voice.
Yeah.
Or that
Yeah, and can really put them down about it. And
yeah.
I played clarinet and saxophone as my first couple instruments, and in middle school band. And not that I was like bad and being called out for it. I was bad, but nobody called me out for it. They made me first tenor, even though I didn't realize that there was a button on the side that made notes sharp or flat. So every song I played was in whatever the automatic key of a saxophone is. But
what is it like?
well, I'll ask Chris. Yeah, but I just didn't like that sort of organization of music in a group of 50 kids where nobody gets the individual attention to find out they're playing the instrument wrong. And so when I got to high school, I wasn't doing band anymore, and that's when I picked up guitar, because luckily my dad played, and he got me a start on it, and then YouTube. Took myself away.
I feel like that familiar, that bond there, the familiar bond, that's my dad played. Kelly Zenz plays, all of her kids play. I think that's a huge, huge deal.
Yeah, I think best thing that you can, if you have a kid who plays, is learn to also play with them. Because that's something that I still share with my dad, is we geek out on guitars all the time.
Your old man still plays.
Mm-hmm.
That's cool.
Yeah, like, and he came down for lunch yesterday in Columbus, because it was a quick enough drive from Cleveland. And I ordered 2 of these, and I still had a Mexican-sized one, but I got this Stratobone thing, and so I did like an hour of like doing a mod on my dad's guitar, and then we were both just freaking out over how cool it was.
What on earth is that thing?
This completes the resonance circle from, so instead of a cover on the back for all the bolts to connect the neck, and then just stopping there, it takes it and then attaches it to the tremolo.
Can you hold it up a bit, Nate? So
Yeah.
I can get on.
It attaches it to the tremolo,
Oh my gosh.
so it's connecting to the vibration of the strings twice. So strings coming through to the tremolo, and then out through the back, and then vibration from the strings vibrating the neck back through to the tremolo. And so the sustain and the volume is just so much better.
You've noticed it.
Oh, you can literally feel it vibrating in your hand.
Wow.
Yeah. And the volume that you're getting out of it is just almost inconvenient. Because I was used to Stratocasters and like their little single coils, and they're the thing that is annoying / really cool about them is how just like quiet and anemic they are. So you get like loads and loads of headroom, but this just immediately bumped it up to like Les Paul level. So it's like driving the amp without me doing anything. So I'm finding out a new way of like adjusting my sounds to it.
So it went all to your fingers rather than the ear.
Yeah. Yeah, but it's like, okay, 1, 2, 4 is overdriving. And just like, okay, so I have to like change all of my little settings. But big new sound. It's still a Strat, but it sounds just beefier.
Do you have any suggestions of anything that we can listen to that is not your average ukulele stuff? Any very strange projects to hear?
James Hill's great. He's written like bluegrass. It's a shame he doesn't get as much attention as Jake Shimabukuro, because like the same level of virtuosity and creativity. But he's written like chamber music suites for the ukulele. He does like the one-man band thing with percussion, everything. Semi-viral with his Billie Jean cover. And he does this thing where he like skewers the strings of a ukulele with chopsticks.
I think I remember you showing me this guy. You sent a video of it.
Yeah, and so I don't know if we could pull it up, but he just ends up like basically doing like EDM music with the ukulele. Like somehow he's able to start like getting all of these weird little sounds out of them.
Does he do like looping or anything like that?
I don't think he does really any sort of looping. It's like everything he can at the same time.
Mild processing or anything?
His name's James Hill.
James Hill, yeah. And you'll recognize him because he has like big curly hairdo and big glasses. But yeah, and we went to his conference, the company I was working for in Vancouver, and he has this whole approach to the ukulele, which is one over here you have melodic, one you have chordal, you have percussive, and then it was like a giant Venn diagram, and he said, and like the big white light in the middle is you doing everything yourself, because he says like I was trying to find the limits of what I could do with the ukulele. And moral of the story there is that there's really no limit, as long as you're being creative about it. But yeah, James Hill I would absolutely recommend. Check him out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you said that he has written like for chamber orchestra?
His own pieces. He has a cello player that he works with a lot.
So it sounds a little bit like, did you say that he's like, who's the fellow from the Punch Brothers, the mandolin player? Hosting.
I cannot name a single mandolin player, I think, in general.
I do, but I can't come back.
If TJ White were here, he'd do a shame on him. He's doing the Lake Golden on show. What's that? Are you looking it up for me?
I am.
Yes. Faster.
Don't.
Ukulele.
What am I looking at? I just
Punch Brothers mandolin player.
So I was wondering if you might play some songs first.
Okay.
Kind of like to hear.
Yeah, sorry, I got like so caught up in talking about this.
That
now.
was good.
Yeah, I might as well just go ahead and play Stash.
Chris? No, is that right? Chris Dunn?
What's the name, just so I'm not like dying while I play this?
Chris Dunn? What I was going to say was that it's, people writing for the ukulele, people writing for the mandolin.
Mm-hmm.
I think Fleck wrote some stuff for symphony.
Yeah.
This is the same path that the nylon string guitar with under Sylvia. He was learning. It was really the guitar was really looked at kind of like it wasn't very respected. It was like, kind of like a harmonica or like a banjo. Or
It was just a folk instrument. It wasn't until the Beatles really that everybody was just like, wow, guitars are cool. Yeah.
But he was definitely swimming a river, bringing it to a place of stature.
Yeah, and it's so weird because you think like nylon string guitar, Spanish music, obviously, but Andre Segovia, like, doing a novelty act is like not something I can get my head around. Yeah.
He was the right back.
Oh, hell yeah. Massively.
He had a direction that he was going.
Yeah. All right. I'm gonna get into playing not an entire version of Stash, but what I can get into. I skipped some lyrics and,
How long did it take you to work that out?
I like kind of slowly did it. It's hard for me to answer that question because I did it piecemeal, a little bit at a time.
Did you work from one live version in particular, or did you just work from the live one version?
Well, when I worked it out on guitar, which I did first, I was working from the Alive, well, not the Alive one, Picture of Nectar. Especially getting like the weird little interlude in the middle.
Great, yeah. Is that something that's like written, or I know a lot of their stuff?
Yeah, that's like a composed part of it. But then the end, Trey just kind of goes wild. Oh, hey.
Here.
Hey, didn't know you were coming.
Nobody be alarmed if you feel 10% sexier. It's just because Chris Pratt is here.
Yeah, but that's what I was talking about when I said I was slowly teaching myself by taking what I knew elsewhere and trying to put it over the ukulele. Because it only started that I accidentally was like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the interval and the little slide thingy from Stash. Like, and then I had to go over to my guitar and was like, okay, well, what notes was I playing? What key is that in? And finding my way through the melody first. And after I did that, I don't think I had enough of a chord repertoire to play through like a D minor 7 and then an A7 and 2 different voicings and a diminished chord. But that happened later.
This is kind of a long shot, but because Stash is always, it has this kind of like Latin 2-5-1 vibe in the middle of it. There's an instrument in South America called a cuatro. And it's really big in a music called llanero, or like música de los llanos. It's like cowboy music.
Yeah.
So big in Venezuela, big in Colombia, but they have an instrument that looks just like that called a cuatro.
Huh.
So much so that it gets mistaken. I'm curious how close the tunings are.
I wouldn't know, but I do know that the history of the ukulele kind of gets abridged enough that people just say Hawaii, but it really comes from Portuguese immigrants to Hawaii bringing a small harmonic instrument, because before the ukulele everything was just like all percussive music in Hawaii, and the king took a liking to it, and so everybody was like, ukulele is the thing now. But it would make sense to me that Portuguese influence would, bring something like that into South America. Yeah.
We'll watch some videos tonight after they pass.
Okay.
Your mind's going to be blown.
Yeah. But it works really well with Latin music, and not just because nylon string, but also because it's tiny and easy to beat up, and it's not going to hit you back, sort of thing. But it's really easy to just get your hands around. And when I started looking more into like flamenco techniques and percussive stuff like that, this ended up being really easy. Also, at the same time, I was assisting in these classes, and everybody is playing the same C chord all together, and the other teacher. And I was just getting bored, so I was like, and then I found out I could like do funner, like some more fun with that. And I found out, I was like, this is kind of like a perfect Latin music instrument.
Yeah.
Yeah.
In the cuatro, what happens like in the upper valve where the neck meets the body, there's like a plate of pine that they put on it, because it's a very percussive, very aggressive thing.
Yeah.
So the pine is there to protect the instrument.
Yeah.
I mean, they really beat the hell out of it.
Yeah, I mean, if you imagine getting your arm around a guitar, a lot of the mobility becomes limited because it's just like, it's eating up your arm to get around it up to the elbow. With ukulele, that is obviously not happening, so I can just really wail on it.
Well, I mean, a lot of that could be your really big bicep.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a little different for...
Yeah. Also, if you're very handsome and impressive like me, this becomes a lot easier.
Well, so we're just rounding on the hour, so if anybody has any questions.
Is ukulele a different key than guitar? Is it not the same instrument?
I have a handout that you should see.
No, you need one first one.
I've never seen an electric ukulele before. I didn't even know they existed.
Yeah, I'm sorry
Because
I didn't get to that.
And it does, oddly enough, it has steel strings.
Yeah.
Yeah. I didn't know that even that thing was a real.
Looks like a little telly.
I
Yeah.
thought it was just a toy guitar.
So I looked into it and like, also the ukulele community is full of people who are excited about ukulele. And there's guitar crossover, but not a ton of people who come from that world. But I had to really hunt down something like this. Eventually I found a company in Germany that was making these. Mandolin, surprisingly, has enough of a player base that there's companies dedicated to making pickups just for electric mandolins. But this company, Risa, actually has to like hand wind their own pickups for a 4-string instrument of this tuning. But I mean, it's pretty hotly wound too. I had to like really lower them down so it's not constantly overdriving.
Are they little humbuckers or something?
First one down here is. Yeah, but it's like, a little bit more brutal than a ukulele can usually be.
Yeah. So, like, is it going to start here? Ukulele, no? You could do it.
God, yeah, I hope so. So,
Ukulele, definitely.
yeah, Chris knows I've been keeping like a list of band names for. Sorry, what?
We were talking about 21 Pilots, and they play uke a lot in their stuff, and so like if they have that, they would probably be going crazy with it.
Oh, they'd be going nuts.
Yeah, they play uke, and then it also gets kind of heavy with the normal uke, so I can't imagine what they would do with that.
Yeah. So, I mean, I know the first time that I played with distortion on guitar, I was like, why is there a knob? Why is there like any setting but 10? Like that's sort of like way too much. I would love to see that. But no, I know Chris knows that I have a ongoing band name list in my in my phone, and Ukulele is in there.
Yes.
So I feel like that is the perfect pairing of concept with name.
Make this happen.
Yeah.
That is amazing.
Yeah.
I can already see like the album art.
Awesome, but yeah.
So from the perspective of being both a student and a teacher, what is the best piece of advice you've either gotten or the best piece of advice you give to students when studying?
You know, I wrote down like a whole bunch of stuff that I just called uke thoughts on my phone. I'm very disorganized, and so if I have a thought, I have to get it down, and I just put it in like my phone's note app.
That's what I do. I do the exact same thing.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. There's like otherwise I'll lose it.
Yes.
Let's see. Probably maintaining a beginner mind attitude, and I've actually heard because I'm getting back into martial arts, like mushin or empty mind, coming in and being open to learning all and any idea, and especially like as a teacher, I've tried the skewering with chopsticks thing myself at home, to know what it feels like to have no idea what you're doing. But what my job as a teacher is, you know, students are constantly being reminded, like, well, I don't really know what I'm capable of yet, that they don't know what their limits are either. Because if you've walked the path a little bit further down, then you know that they're going to get somewhere. And just to let them know that there's quite a lot to see down the road, even if they're feeling discouraged at the beginning.
My question is, Donald Trump,
Mm-hmm.
good president?
No.
Great president.
No.
What? No, I love this one. The FBI is not watching this.
Oh, they're totally watching.
No, it's not.
They're absolutely. This is going in my file.
We do say, Josh,
What's the company that makes that Telecaster used?
Oh, they're called Risa. They're out of Germany.
Risa.
Risa. There's another company that's you can buy like $100 electric ukulele on Amazon called Vorsen. Don't waste your money. That they're like the electronics were just crazy loud. I don't know what it was, but I could not get an E string onto that ukulele and then tune it up to what I needed to. But it's like a real instrument. Like it looks like a toy, but when you get it in your hand, you're like, oh, yeah. It has the feeling of quality to it. But Reese, I definitely recommend. I think they make a Strat style as well.
R-E-S-A.
R-I-S-A. Yeah.
Are you also going to look eventually into the nylon string solid body use, or are you pretty happy with your solutions now?
You know, I kind of can't figure out why I would want one.
And you can get like overdrive like this.
Yeah. And like I've stuffed T-shirts into my actual ukuleles before to make sure I can get like overdrive and not squealing feedback as well. But
I'm looking forward to the Master of Puppets version.
actually, I think you can find that on YouTube right now.
Oh, really? You're
Yeah.
kidding?
I'm not kidding. Somebody has gone through that. I think I've seen Slayer on ukulele too.
Oh my God.
Yeah. But not like a Risa like just a ukulele. But like it's really fun. And you can travel with this. When I went to Europe, not this ukulele, but the one I left at your place in Columbus, I literally fit it in my backpack. And so I never really kind of lost touch with having a daily practice of music. And you know, it's like the most gonna have people gravitate to you sort of thing you can possibly do in a strange setting. I was traveling by myself, and if you like take out an instrument and make anything that sounds halfway like music, then people will want to talk to you. Yeah.
So we usually close out with like a best gig, worst gig, which I should extend to like best lesson experience.
Yeah.
Let's see. Because it's easy to pick the worst gig.
That is the one that people usually start with.
And I know, I love that.
Yeah.
I love this question.
Worst gig, I think it was about 22. And there's like a half joking, half like we really want an actual winner that we're excited about. Sort of like pageant thing in Greek life in UC called Mr. University. And there's a talent show portion to it. And one year I was picked by my fraternity to be our, runner in this contest for Mr. University. It's like, yeah, it's like, and you'll play guitar at the talent thing. And I had no idea how to mic up a guitar. I think this was like the first time I played it outside of my bedroom. And like trying to sing and like couldn't get it. I found out afterward that nobody could hear me sing because the mic wasn't close enough to make that happen. I was like, awesome. But it did not go well at all. Best gig, I think it's a tie between getting people to like 60 to 80 people at our Sunday show in Austin because we had an ensemble along with the company that was doing the ukulele classes. We'd have a twice a month Sunday gig at this one brunch spot in town and had like 80 people singing along to Wheels on the Bus, like enthusiastically. So that was pretty dope. And then probably I played in a temple band, but we had the last show we did was a Hanukkah show, and we played Hanukkah Song by Adam Sandler, which we like did a rocking version.
Playing uke or guitar for that?
Guitar for that one.
Okay.
And we actually did Somewhere Over the Rainbow for that one. And I was like, do you want me to bring a ukulele? And it's like, no, we're not doing that version. I was like, do you want me to bring a ukulele? But alas, I could not get it.
And then you showed up with the ukulele.
Yeah. Pry it out of my hold that answer.
Well, does anybody else have any questions? How about again for Nathan? All right, guys, the class is over, but you don't have to go anywhere and drink beer, listen to some music, hang out. So feel free to stay as long